Before the 20th century, naval power was defined by the battleship. Immense, armored leviathans whose large caliber guns dictated dominion over the seas. Battleships represented a nation's prestige and military might, a symbol of naval supremacy. Engagements were often direct line-of-battle clashes, where firepower and armor thickness were paramount. However, the dawn of aviation introduced a radical new dimension to warfare. As aircraft capabilities advanced, visionaries began to conceive of ships that could launch and recover these flying machines far from land. This innovation promised to extend a nation's reach, offering unprecedented capabilities for reconnaissance, offensive strikes, and defense. The interwar period saw naval architects and strategists grapple with this evolving technology. The Washington Naval Treaty of 1922, while limiting capital ship tonnage, ironically spurred innovation in carrier design, as nations sought alternative ways to project power. Experiments and doctrinal debates laid the groundwork for what would become the decisive weapon of World War II's naval theater. By 1939, the aircraft carrier was no longer an experimental concept, but a formidable, albeit still evolving, weapon. It was poised to redefine naval warfare, shifting the paradigm from ship-to-ship gun duels to battles fought over vast distances by aircraft. The ability to strike hundreds of miles from a fleet would prove strategically transformative. In the Pacific, the United States and Imperial Japan emerged as the primary proponents of carrier warfare. Both nations understood the immense potential of air power at sea, but their doctrines evolved along different paths, shaped by geography, resources, and strategic imperatives. These differences would profoundly influence the war's trajectory. For the Imperial Japanese Navy, led by figures like Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the aircraft carrier was a weapon of decisive offense. Their doctrine emphasized massed carrier strikes, aimed at overwhelming enemy defenses and achieving a swift, decisive victory. Yamamoto, a brilliant strategist, understood the value of surprise and concentrated force. Exemplified by the attack on Pearl Harbor, the Japanese carriers, particularly the formidable Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, were designed for speed and offensive capability, though often with less protective armor than their allied counterparts. Their air crews were highly trained and experienced in 1941, formidable opponents whose initial victories demonstrated the potency of carrier-based air power. The United States Navy, initially reeling from Pearl Harbor, quickly adapted. Admirals Chester Nimitz and William Bull Halsey spearheaded the development of the Fast Carrier Task Force doctrine. This strategy prioritized flexibility, combining multiple carriers with escorts into powerful mobile strike groups, capable of sustained operations and rapid response across the vast Pacific American carriers, such as the Lexington, Yorktown, and later the Essex class, were built for endurance and damage control. Designed to absorb punishment and remain operational, their industrial capacity allowed for rapid production, a crucial factor in the long war of attrition. The U.S. doctrine matured into a sophisticated interplay of air superiority, reconnaissance, and strike operations. In the European theater, the role of carriers was more limited. The British Royal Navy, a pioneer in carrier development, deployed armored deck carriers like HMS Illustrious and Victorious, designed to withstand bomb hits in the constricted waters of the Mediterranean. Their primary roles included fleet protection, anti-submarine warfare, and close air support, often operating under challenging conditions. Germany and Italy, while developing significant air forces, largely neglected carrier development. Germany's Graf Zeppelin was never completed, and Italy made no serious attempts. This strategic oversight would prove costly, leaving them without a crucial tool for projecting power beyond land-based air cover, particularly in the Atlantic. The attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, vividly demonstrated the potential of carrier-borne air power. Even though American carriers were providentially absent, Japanese naval aviation, launched from 6 carriers, devastated the U.S. Pacific Fleet's battleships, altering the strategic landscape and highlighting the vulnerability of traditional naval formations to airstrikes. It was a brutal awakening, The first true carrier versus carrier battle unfolded in May 1942 at the Battle of the Coral Sea. Both sides inflicted heavy losses, with the U.S. losing USS Lexington and the Japanese Shoho sunk. Shokaku severely damaged. Though a tactical draw, it was a strategic victory for the Allies, preventing the invasion of Port Moresby and foreshadowing the future of naval warfare. Aircraft never saw the enemy ships. Just a month later, June 1942 brought the Battle of Midway, a pivotal moment. Through superior intelligence and decisive leadership, the U.S. Navy, with 3 carriers, Yorktown, Enterprise, Hornet, ambushed the Japanese striking force of 4 carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Hiryu. In a stunning series of airstrikes, all 4 Japanese carriers were sunk, along with many experienced aircrews. Midway irrevocably shifted the balance of power in the Pacific. Japan's offensive capability was severely crippled, and the strategic initiative passed to the United States. The battle cemented the aircraft carrier's status as the undisputed capital ship of the naval war, a role it would never relinquish. The Guadalcanal campaign saw a brutal war of attrition, including further carrier engagements like the Battle of the Eastern Solomons and the Battle of Santa Cruz Islands. These battles, while costly for both sides, gradually wore down Japanese aircrews and naval assets, demonstrating the relentless nature of carrier operations and the heavy toll on personnel and machines. As the war progressed, American industrial might began to produce carriers in unprecedented numbers. The Essex-class fleet carriers and numerous Independence-class light carriers, alongside escort carriers, CVEs, flooded the Pacific. This numerical superiority, coupled with improved aircraft and pilot training, overwhelmed the dwindling Japanese capacity for replacement. The Battle of the Philippine Sea, in June 1944, often called the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot, was a devastating blow to Japanese naval air power. American pilots, flying newer, more capable aircraft against poorly trained Japanese aircrews, shot down hundreds of enemy planes with minimal U.S. losses. 3 Japanese carriers were also sunk, 2 by submarines and 1 by air attack. The Battle of Leyte Gulf in October 1944 was the largest naval battle in history. While it involved major surface engagements, the Japanese carrier force, severely depleted of aircraft and pilots, was used primarily as a decoy. American carriers once again played the decisive role, striking Japanese battleships and cruisers, though themselves targeted by the first organized kamikaze attacks. In the Atlantic, carriers primarily provided anti-submarine escort for convoys, flying cover for amphibious landings, and engaging in limited strike operations. British and American escort carriers proved vital in combating the U-boat threat, effectively closing the mid-Atlantic gap and protecting vital supply lines. A less glamorous but equally crucial contribution to the Allied victory. World War II unequivocally established the aircraft carrier as the dominant force in naval warfare. The era of the battleship was over, replaced by a new paradigm where air power, projected from a mobile sea base, dictated naval strategy. This fundamental shift reshaped every navy worldwide. The United States emerged from the war as the world's preeminent naval power, possessing a vast fleet of carriers that could project influence globally. This power projection capability became a cornerstone of its Cold War strategy, allowing for rapid deployment and sustained presence in key strategic regions. The human cost of carrier warfare was immense. Thousands of highly skilled pilots, air crews, and naval personnel perished in the furious air-sea battles. The psychological toll of continuous combat, the constant threat of attack, and the sight of comrades lost at sea left indelible marks on those who survived. Technologically, the war spurred incredible advancements in naval aviation and radar. Aircraft designs evolved rapidly, becoming faster, more powerful, and more resilient. The development of specialized anti-submarine warfare, ASW aircraft and techniques, revolutionized naval defense, highlighting the adaptability born from necessity. Beyond the immediate conflict, the aircraft carrier's success influenced military doctrine for decades. It underscored the importance of combined arms operations, where air, surface, and subsurface forces worked in concert. The carrier became not just a ship, but the core of an entire naval battle group, a complex ecosystem of power. The story of aircraft carriers in World War II is one of relentless innovation and brutal adaptation. Nations that embraced this new technology and effectively integrated it into their strategy found themselves with a decisive advantage. Those that hesitated or failed to adapt paid a heavy price. The war underscored the critical importance of intelligence gathering and deciphering, as demonstrated at Midway. Understanding enemy intentions, capabilities, and movements was as crucial as possessing superior hardware. Information became a weapon in itself. Moreover, the human element remains central. The courage of the aircrews who flew into battle, often against overwhelming odds, and the resilience of the sailors who kept these massive floating airfields operational under constant threat define this era. Their sacrifices forged a legacy of unwavering commitment. The aircraft carrier's enduring legacy is its proven ability to project power, influence events far from home shores, and adapt to evolving threats. From the Pacific Island hopping campaigns to today's global operations, it remains a symbol of naval reach and strategic flexibility, a testament to its transformational impact. The history of aircraft carriers in World War II is a profound testament to human ingenuity in times of conflict and the dramatic shifts technology can bring to the battlefield. It's a narrative rich with strategic lessons, personal sacrifice, and the relentless pursuit of adaptation. To continue exploring the pivotal moments that shaped our world, subscribe and join our community. Your engagement helps us bring these vital stories to life. What part of this story, the technological leap, the strategic decisions, or the human bravery, resonates with you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We value your perspective on these complex historical events.